This video is part of a series, so you might want to watch the first entry to get the full picture of why Trapped is so outstandingly good at weaving its love story. Now that we have established what sources of antagonism are present in a romance and examined in detail how Kinporsch and Lovely Writer failed at all three of them and thus ruined the main couple's relationship beyond repair, let's look at how it can be done right. Again, the inability to create and sustain the different conflicts is one of the main reasons a lot of BL romances fail. And it is a challenging task in general, but in a romance, it is especially hard because there are so many different types of antagonists, human and non-human ones. How do you raise all of these different conflicts that are so diverse in their fighting ground and their approach and have them all blow up at the same time? Let me now show you how Trapped achieved exactly that by implementing, you guessed it, yet another source of conflict. One that is so powerful that it can bind all conflicts in your stories together into one, allowing you not only to keep the established antagonists busy and relevant even after the main leads become a couple, but also slay them all in one big satisfying strike when it's time for the climax. So, what is an inner antagonist? Well, it is, as the name says, an opponent, so it keeps the heroine from getting what she wants. But it has no physical form. It resides within, like an addiction, a trait, trauma, or false belief. Now, what are the advantages of having an inner antagonist? First of all, it can serve as a way to characterize your lead, set them apart from others who do not have that problem. And since the problem is innate and thus constantly present, when you know your character's inner antagonist, as a writer, you will kind of always know how she will react to different things and challenges.
What's wrong, McFly? Chicken?
It also makes for a character that can be wonderfully, systematically dynamic. When you decide to have the inner antagonist of your protagonist challenged in your story, she can oscillate between the person she was when the inner antagonist is strong and changed in moments the antagonist has lost its grip on her. And these are only the general dramatic superpowers an inner antagonist has. For a romance, it's gold. First, if one of your main leads carries an inner antagonist, it can basically allow you to have them keep on fighting without compromising their relationship. Because they fight the inner antagonist, not each other, technically. So the lover has something to do that is not backstabbing. I will show you in a minute. But also, love gets something to do. You know, the other non-human antagonist we have in a love story? Love already is an inner antagonist herself. What better way of keeping her relevant even after the lovers are together than presenting her with an enemy in her own playing field? But for that, you need a romantic question that goes beyond will they, won't they? And Trapped has one, and it laid the groundwork very early on. Listen up. We're back in episode 3. Tang Yi has just refused to give Xiao Fei the lighter. We are in the midst of the romance plot's inciting incident. And we get a flashback. It is Tang Yi and his adoptive father, Old Tang. Probably the night before the shooting in which Old Tang and Xiao Fei's mentor will end up dead. He explains why he wants to legitimize the business. Their workers should be able to lead a normal life. And he asks Tang Yi to finish the task should something happen to him, offering him the lighter as a symbol of his trust. Tang Yi is not sold, he says. But Old Tang replies, a normal life is where happiness lies. And he adds, there are already too many people in his past who had to give up their chance on having a normal life due to him choosing a life of crime. Giving all the others a chance to have one now is the least he can do. Tang Yi still resists, getting snarky. Is Old Tongue talking like this because he has gone soft or irrational due to love? Then Old Tongue says this: one day there will be a person that lets you understand the feeling of a normal life. Tang Yi accepts, promising to fulfill Old Tongue's wish of legitimizing the gang, even if it means his own death. But again, Old Tongue stops him in his tracks and says, no task is important enough to risk his life for. Should Tang Yi ever have to decide between his promise and life, he should choose life. Now, what is the romantic dramatic question that this is supposed to plant in our heads? We just need to look at our hero scoffing at the prospect of a normal life as something boring and weak, and mocking Old Tongue for being sentimental and soft. His eagerness to pledge his life as if it were nothing. Will love, as Old Tongue predicted, teach Tang Yi the value of a normal life and say goodbye to his life as a mafioso and a criminal? Okay, but why is this even a question? What made Tang Yi reject the value of a normal life in the first place, and why does he not embrace a normal life first chance he gets, as Old Tongue wanted him to? What makes him resist? So much so that it takes a whole ass show until the romantic, dramatic question gets answered. There is something holding him back, something within him that fights fangs and claws to keep him on the path of crime, darkness, and death. Working subtly but steadily from the moment we see Tang Yi on screen. Always in the wings, showing itself fully in only one crucial moment. Let me show you this very moment when for me it appears in all its power. Tang Yi's inner antagonist. So, let us recap. Since Old Tongue's death, Tang Yi is working on fulfilling his promise to finalize the family going legitimate. And for these past 4 years, while doing it, one obsessive, nosy cop must have been a pain in the butt. Tang Yi gets framed for murder and gets intel about who it might be who wants him out of the way. Meanwhile, the police finds out that Tang Yi is an alibi and zeroes in on another person of interest, a guy named Chen Wenhao. He used to be a friend of Old Tongue's who went to prison for 24 years. 4 years ago, he was released but suddenly fled the country. Now he is back. And it is not only Tang Yi who wonders if his running away might be connected to the shooting that ended Old Tongue's life and that of Xiao Fei's mentor. On the lookout for Chen Wenhao, the two bump into each other. They get kidnapped by his henchmen, but are able to work as a team and escape. In episode 6, a tip brings the police and Tang Yi together again in an attempt to catch Chen Wenhao, but again, he is a no-show. Until out on a run, Tang Yi is getting ambushed. Xiao Fei finally has a justification to move in as Tang Yi's police protection. For 2 episodes, our Betty lays low. When Tang Yi sends Xiao Fei out to keep his sister company, Xiao Fei is almost killed. While Xiao Fei is unconscious, Tang Yi gets a hold of the shooter and now has not only to avenge the death of Old Tongue, but also the attack on his sister and Xiao Fei. So when Chen Wenhao's minions grab him after he leaves the hospital to see Xiao Fei, he is more than ready to finally meet his human opponent in the flesh. During the meeting, Chen Wenhao tells us that he once was very close to Old Tongue, and that in fact, he went to jail to protect Old Tongue. But soon after, Old Tongue betrayed him. He is, however, ready to start afresh. Tang Yi keeps his cool and accepts the truce. Right after, Tang Yi visits a now conscious Xiao Fei, who tells him that a fortune teller once foretold him that he can only be killed by a cannonball. The next day, Tang Yi, still confused about what is happening to him, admits that he likes having someone look out for him since Old Tongue has died. Xiao Fei's like, "You like that new life? There is more where that came from. Let me show you." Ready to start immediately. At home, Tang Yi ponders over the charm Xiao Fei has gifted him and Old Tongue's lighter. Xiao Fei, not hearing back from Tang Yi, has a moment of panic. Could he have been rejected? It's actually cute. But then it is official. So now we enter the second half. And still, they cannot catch a break. Tang Yi tells Xiao Fei to move out of his house to not get attacked again. But Xiao Fei knows what this is all about. He pleads him to let the police handle Chen Wenhao because otherwise, as a policeman, he would have to arrest Tang Yi. Tang Yi refuses. But still, when Tang Yi is alone and broody on his birthday, Xiao Fei shows up and he makes a promise. Then Chen Wenhao reappears. Xiao Fei is getting stalked and Tang Yi drugged by his assistant. Both escape the attacks in the nick of time. Again, Tang Yi wants to deal with it the mafia way. Xiao Fei again pleads to let the police handle him, and this time, Tang Yi relents. Tang Yi asks his sister to leave the country and then meets Chen Wenhao once more. They exchange a number of threats, thinly but deliciously veiled as compliments, more at odds than ever before. Meanwhile, Xiao Fei, who realized that the music box his mentor gifted him is the same as the one Tang Yi's real mother sent him as a birthday present when he was a kid, finds out that his mentor has birthed a child and gave it away for adoption. Xiao Fei has a hunch who this child might be. But before he's able to tell Tang Yi, Wenhao has struck again and kidnapped Tang Yi's adoptive sister. Wenhao tells Tang Yi that he wants revenge, not only for going to prison, but because he thinks old Tang robbed him of his lover and child. But before he can proceed, yes. As it turns out, Xiao Fei's mentor, Tang Yi's mother, never told Chen Wenhao nor old Tang that the baby was still alive. All to save her son from a life of crime he would have led otherwise. It was by pure happenstance that Tang Yi ended up in old Tang's care after he fled his adoptive family. For Tang Yi, this changes nothing. He still wants revenge for the death of old Tang, and was Chen Wenhao, who he had seen bent over the two dead bodies 4 years ago, and it was definitely him who shot Tang Yi. But Chen Wenhao is stunned. He does not care about revenge anymore and confesses. Yes, he shot Tang Yi and was planning on killing his former friend, but someone had been faster than him. Tang Yi is still full of rage, and Xiao Fei asks, Tang Yi finally lets go. He speeds home. Xiao Fei follows him. He tries to console Tang Yi, who is close to breaking down completely, but Tang Yi rejects him over and over. And then says this: "Nothing happened that day. Don't pay attention to me." Tang Yi is so quick to pledge his life for a task, he cannot see the value of a normal life because he does not think he is worthy of one. This is Tang Yi's inner antagonist. He does not feel worthy of love. And when we look at his backstory, how he might have come to that conclusion is not hard to understand. In episode 13, when sharing their first meal as a couple, Tang Yi, to explain what drives his need to avenge old Tang's murder, describes how he grew up basically all alone, given away for adoption by his birth mother and neglected by an adoptive father who never wanted him and who acted out his grief about his wife's death, Tang Yi's adoptive mother, on the only one who was around. He never knew what a normal life was like, what being loved and cherished was like. His life would be worth nothing to him because no one around him valued it. And can you see how that makes Tang Yi the perfect hero in a romance? A story about the transformational power of love, in which love is herself an agent. It is her job to challenge that inner antagonist. It is her battle. And old Tang made that challenge text for us. And a battle, a challenge it is. And you can see this in how long it takes Old Tang to gain the trust of the little runaway he stumbled upon by accident and took home. While the other stray we now know is Tangyi's adoptive sister is already well fed and bathed, sleeping happily upstairs, Tangyi, or shall we say, his inner antagonist, resists. All these little hallmarks of a normal life, eating together, celebrating one's birthday together, cooking for the ones you care about and looking after them, he does not know this. He does not trust this. Why would anyone do this to him? And it is only Old Tang's patience that is able to silence the voice in Tangyi's head that says, "That is not for you. You do not deserve this. You are not worthy of attention and care." He's able to challenge Tangyi's inner antagonist for the first time as an agent of love. He picks up the battle out of love for Tangyi. And may I just gush about the fact that this is not only a flashback for us, the viewer, but that it is Tangyi telling this to his lover, like people do in a relationship. And you know why he can? Yeah, because this shit is so well set up and the characters are so rich that we don't need a fucking misunderstanding to drive the plot or someone who just cannot open up his mouth. We can have two committed adults doing healthy and adulty stuff and still have conflict. It is possible. But as we see, the battle is not over. Love has not won yet. When Old Tang states a normal life is his main motivation to go legitimate, Tangyi still doesn't get it. And when he does acquiesce to fulfill Old Tang's vision in case he's not able to, there it is. His inner antagonist is alive and well. And Old Tang kinda knows he has not succeeded yet. His romantic thesis, it almost reads like a hope, a wish, as if he knew he wouldn't get the chance to get this job done. And now imagine being that young man, guided, persuaded by this inner voice that has only been somewhat muted by the love of a surrogate father, and now losing this person. Not only that, witnessing him get killed under your watch, that inner voice would from now on scream in full force. And yes, now 4 years later, when we meet him in episode 1, he has not prioritized life over duty at all. The opposite. He has practically given up his life, clinging to what the voice in himself told him is his only value, the promise he made. In fact, there is almost nothing left of the young man he was before. He's basically cosplaying the man he wasn't able to save, or rather what he thinks, guided by self-hatred, guilt, and a subsequent wish to self-sacrifice, the leader of a gang should be like. Lonely, calculating, and aloof. Like, he goes everywhere alone. He doesn't even bring a bodyguard to meet his nemesis. The moment the legitimization is a done deal, this guy is ready to cross the rainbow bridge. And so it is no wonder why we start the story where we started. It is the moment when Mang Xiaofei is ready to pick up the task that Old Tang had to leave unfinished. The task to bring love into Tangyi's life. A love that is strong and patient and enough to challenge Tangyi's inner antagonist. And defeat it once and for all. And it is so well crafted, like all his challenges, they're really an echo of the message that Old Tang wanted to get across, but couldn't. Not fully, that is. The message that, yes, you are worthy of attention, of care, and of someone by your side to eat with you and to spend your birthday with you. Because no matter what happened to you at the beginning of this life, you are precious. That you exist is a miracle worth to be celebrated. And it is that message that brings Tangyi to surrender at midpoint. Even after their public commitment, Tangyi snaps back into teasing and being aloof. He's like, oh, I don't know if I'm cut out for a relationship. It is no coincidence that it is seeing Xiaofei's wound that unarms him and literally brings him to his knees in disbelief and gratitude, and his inner antagonist to shut up, because it was an act of love that tells him, it's not your destiny to self-sacrifice for a normal life of love and peace for all the others. Your life, your happiness is worth so much more. It's worth being protected. So whenever Xiaofei says, let the police do it, no murdering please, he's not being boring or a buzzkill. He is doing love's job, old Tang's job. And this is where I circle back to what I told you, he is not fighting Tang Yi. He's fighting Tang Yi's inner voice. And he might be annoying and at times kill the mood, but he is not attacking Tang Yi himself, not devaluing him. He wants to save him, and Tang Yi knows it. They never have to break up. They do not have to betray each other. Heck, when Xiaofei tells him that he went to see his adoptive father behind his back, Tang Yi's angry, but when Xiaofei says, trust me, he does. Show me one other BL couple that has that kind of trust. But remember how I told you that giving your hero an inner conflict can streamline or connect all the conflicts? Chen Wenhao? He's not only there to enforce proximity, he is part of old Tang's and Xiaofei's battle to make Tang Yi learn the value of a life away from crime and murder. When Xiaofei drags Tang Yi to the path of self-love and domesticity and trust, his showing up feeds Tang Yi's inner antagonist. He is a man who gave up the pursuit of love and happiness. Just like Tang Yi, he is ready to sacrifice his life and that of others for revenge. And it is a tug of war. Like around midpoint, we have one scene of Tang Yi valuing life, and in the next one, he's in a room with Chen Wenhao and accepts possible death by poisoning without even flinching. It is these two paths that Tang Yi is contemplating at midpoint. Past, duty, pain and revenge, the way of the mafia, and the way of the law, of future, love, and a normal life. And so it is no coincidence that it is the moment when both players representing these two contradictory paths come together for the first time. He is ripped apart. So much so that all his self-hatred finally comes out unfiltered. The inner antagonist finally revealed. And because of that, nothing is won or settled afterwards. He might accept to be held and he apologizes to his lover, but the pain that feeds his need for revenge and drags him to the dark side has not subsided. Xiaofei might have helped him through this crisis, but for now, the inner antagonist might be even stronger than ever. His goal is unchanged, and now he doesn't even know who to hate, and the man whose death was supposed to bring him peace is his father? I mean, but even he is still not out of business, just like Xiaofei. When Chen Wenhao stumbles upon the real shooter, a cop working in Xiaofei's precinct that had to silence Xiaofei's mentor when she found out that he helped the mafia, he captures him. And he, representing the way of the mafia, the path of past and pain, does of course not let the cops handle it. He hands him over to his son. And see how gloriously the inner conflict is working? It doesn't even matter that we have barely seen this man before. Like, remember? It's Ken! No. You have seen him. Remember Tom's sister? Yeah. Me neither. The real conflict is within. He just fans the inner antagonist's flame. And Tang Yi finally bursts. And when that happens, who you gonna call? Yes, still on love duty. So we get the confirmation, random guy, it was him. I mean, what stops Tang Yi now? Yes, Xiaofei, but It was never the words that truly made a difference to Tang Yi. He needs a plain example. He shoves Xiao Fei away, raises his gun. Before we go into themes, can we first acknowledge how the stakes were being raised here? Gustav, you will love that. Going from not being able to get someone you love shot to kind of being responsible for someone you love getting shot by someone else to shooting someone you love yourself? Magnificent. But not only that. We finally do get an answer to a romantic, dramatic question close to the climactic moment. Yes, he has finally learned it. He has not gone the way of the mafia, killed Old Tang's murderer and fled. He has given the guy and himself to police. And he's ready to face the consequences. He has chosen, finally, a normal life. And he might not have fully embraced that he deserves a normal life yet. I mean, his friend said it.
你现在的样子比里头受伤的家伙还要糟糕哎。
Tang Yi probably feels even more guilty, worthless, and unlovable than ever. It once more needs Xiao Fei to dispel the self-hatred that welled up again. To tell him, you are loved. Your life is so valuable. If not to you, but to me it is. And if this is not over, fine, I can keep going. I'm going to stand in the way of every bullet that you will fire in your life. Because I value it. I will not have you throw it away. I want you to have your life, your freedom, and spend it with you. And only then he can surrender. Except that they still might be together. And I've heard a lot of people complain that they do not want him to go to prison because it's not a happy ending. And to that I say, no. First, this is a show whose symbol for life is a skeleton. That our hero was finally free by going into a prison. I mean, and yes, this is not a cheery ending. Heck, Tang Yi, before he enters the prison door, he looks more scared than anything. But isn't that how defeating an inner antagonist can look like? Would look like? There is just not one big strike in life, and then everything's fine. All the things within us that keep us from becoming better at being good to ourselves and others, they usually cannot be slain. And they tend to linger. They might even never be overcome for good. And being loved, it just doesn't make you automatically love yourself and make you overcome all of your flaws, the pain inside. At best, it can give you that little push to at least try. And that was all the narrative asked for. Tang Yi has learned the worth of a normal life. And yes, would I have preferred that Tang Yi's act of swearing off the mafia path had not happened off screen? And is Xiao Fei surfing a little too close to manic pixie dream boy territory? He has his mentor, but that soon loses priority in the face of Tang Yi's inner battle. From this episode on, he's practically a human shield. But you know what? I don't mind. Tang Yi deserves it. Because we all deserve to be loved with patience and perseverance and have someone to tell us, you are loved. I will defend you. I'm so glad that you're alive. All of us. But especially someone who has never heard it as a child like Tang Yi. And for a pain as big as Tang Yi's, and for a hero as big as he is, and so close to being a tragic one, maybe it needs the strongest vessel of love you can get. Sometimes it just needs when a man is ready to throw away his life out of pain by succumbing to murder. A man that can only be killed by a cannonball to save him. Wait, what? You still think that Kinporsch and Lovely Rider were the best version of themselves? And that an inner conflict would not have made their love story more epic and wholesome?
Challenge accepted.